bought the Champion 338cc wood chipper shredder combo about 9 months ago when we started clearing the 26 acres we have on our wooded lot in Nova Scotia.
And if I had a little chipper wheel along with me,
yeah, that'd be nice.
just leave the wood chips in the woods.
That's lost
We use this chipper to manage brush as we clear land for silvopasture, and we use the chips for mulch and animal bedding on our property. I'm going to be totally honest, I have not used this at all. We've had it for 9 months. Dominic has used it the whole time, but I'm going to do my best to kind of go through all the specifications of the Champion 338cc wood chipper shredder combo. It has a shredder up on the top, and it's gravity fed. You can put your leaves, your lawn trimmings, all of your landscape trimmings and things like this up on the top, and that will shred them out. And over here is the wood chipper. It takes up to 3 inches in diameter of branches, and it can be a little bit tricky.
It's just because of the way the rubber is really stiff and the choke is really really small, 3 inches, like Jenny said. Is that it's really hard to push anything through there that's not very flexible, so it kind of limits you on what you're able to shove in there.
It has a handle for easy maneuverability and the 12-inch never flat tires. It weighs about 190 pounds, and it does have the 1.6 gallon fuel tank on it. So if you're moving it across pavement or asphalt, it's pretty easy to move around. But if you're going to drag it across your lawn, it can get a little bit heavier. Dominic hasn't had any problems on our lawn. I've dragged it across the lawn, and I find it a little bit heavy, but I can move it around fairly easily, and you wouldn't want to take it out into the woods. He's going to talk a little bit about that later, but it is not too bad to carry it around.
It takes regular fuel. You don't need to worry about having premium around to rub it. So I got this chipper because I have chickens and I'm cutting a lot of wood and I have a garden, so I wanted to be able to make my own mulch from the stuff I have here rather than either buying mulch or yeah, so I got a chipper to kind of take care of all that. When I actually bought the house, there was piles of brush everywhere, so I thought a chipper would be perfect to get rid of that stuff rather than burn all of it. So when I started using the chipper, I thought it was going to be great. I'd just run all the boughs through it, but with that size of a chipper, that's not possible. You cannot force the boughs through there's only a 3-inch choke in the intake there, so you can't really force big boughs through it, especially hardwood where it's so branched out. The smaller softwood boughs where they're soft and you can push those through pretty good, but with the hardwood you gotta basically take out your axe or your saw or whatever and chop it all up into straight pieces before it'll chip, which is a bummer because hardwood chips are better. They promote better fungal growth and stuff. But for absorption and stuff, which is mostly what I use it for, and weed suppression, softwood does okay for me. So what I found is that I'm not using it for branches very much. Mostly when I'm clearing wood, if I cut down really small trees, fir or spruce or whatever, then I'll just limb them and make a pile of the little ones that I can gather up later, which is what this is, and push them straight through the chipper. It's got enough power to do pretty good size stuff. It's that choke, pushing things through that choke, which is nearly impossible to do. Moving it around is not too bad. I don't find it too bad. You can pop it up pretty easy. There's a kickstand on the back there, and you can pop it up on the wheels and then just take your time and drag it along behind you. If it falls down in a hole or something, it's a little hard to pull out. It's close to 200 pounds, so. But I've wheeled it through the snow and across the yard and back there and stuff, and up and down little hills, and it's definitely doable. I pull it up over these little steps, not too hard. Now if you're 120 pounds, it's probably hard, but pretty easy to move around. One thing I really like about it is that you don't have to worry about pumping up tires or whatever. They're just hard rubber tires, so they can't go flat on you. You don't got to maintain them at all, so it's pretty easy for me, I think, to move around. I wouldn't move it over like in the woods. You're not going to get it over roots and stuff very easy. That'd be a pain. But as long as the ground is relatively flat and smooth, you can zip it around pretty easy. If I lived in a small place, with a small yard, and I was just cleaning up debris all the time, this would be a perfect thing to have for years and years, and you'd never have to get it bigger than that. For me, it's been good for what I use it for so far, mostly. but you just got to accept its limitations, that you're not going to be firing it and really broad into it, and you're going to have to put in some work before you actually chip. So you got to either trim down branches, or you got to have these ready to go, which how many people are going to have a bunch of these sitting around? So for me, it's not too bad because I've mulched basically my whole 50 by 30 garden. I've filled up wood chips in underneath my chicken coop, and the wood chips are way better for chicken mulch than hay or straw or whatever. I find it absorbs way better, smell stays down better, and you don't have to apply it as often as you do with straw. It doesn't hold up the water as much either. So wood chips are really useful for me, and I have an easier source to chip with. If I had to do all that with branches, I don't think the chipper would be any good for me. Alright, this model is the 338cc. There's one that's like 225, I think, or 227, something like that. And it was only $200 more to get this one, so I went for the bigger one. It's 50% more power almost for only 25, or really 20% more price, I guess. So that's the one we decided to go with. I figured more power would be better. She does go through gas pretty good though, but she starts easy and everything like that. It's easy to get set up, put in oil and stuff. So far so good with all that stuff. So this is where the wood chips come out down here, and they come out at a pretty wild pace. If you actually don't put any bag or anything there, it'll blow a hole right through the grass and eventually like through the dirt and everything with the wood chips. It's pretty impressive, I guess. And so what you normally would do is you'd get your the bag that came with it, and you'd wrap it on and tighten it up on here. Now it was working great and it was perfect for a long time for me, until two things happened. The ring busted off of this, which I guess is not the biggest deal. However, the big problem is this clip is sticky now. It doesn't pop out, and it's not because it's winter, because this was happening in the summertime as well. When you push it down to move it, it stays down. So it's sticky. So you actually have to pull it back up manually, which you could easily forget how to do. Or not how to do, but you might forget to do that. Additionally, it seems like it's been letting go more often lately. So when I'm chipping, once the bag starts to get a little bit full, the string loosens up and the bag falls off, which is really annoying because you cannot, it's very difficult to put this bag on because of the amount of air that's coming out while it's on. So you got to turn the machine off, put the bag back on. It actually takes, because it's kind of a momentum based thing, it takes quite a while for this to shut off, maybe like 5 seconds. So you're standing up waiting for it to shut off and stop blowing air, and then you can put the bag on, tighten it back on, and then start it back up again. So it's a pain in that sense. Something that I'm not happy with, that I haven't come up with a solution for yet, but I haven't really tried either. So, but I'll think of something eventually, I guess, to do that. So there's no electric start on it. It's a pull cord start. There's your gas valve there, and your choke is there, on and off switch. So I will say that up until today, or I should say, every time I've tried to start it, it started up in 1 or 2 pulls real easy. So I'm happy that way. We'll see if that happens today. I don't know. So where it's cold, and I've never run her in the cold. Apparently they're good to run up to about -15. It's about -7 or 8 now, I think. So we'll see how she performs today. So let's try to whip her on, see if she goes. So the on switch is right there, and put your choke on. A little hard to get started this time. I think just because of the cold weather, it might have been gas that's condensed or whatever, or air to condense inside the lines, but after 5 or 11 minutes of pulling on her, she started. Alright, the last thing I'm going to talk about before I start chipping some wood is this intake, which I've seen a lot of people take off this big part because it is kind of a pain pushing through this rubber. If you want to have a look here. The rubber is actually loosened up just from using it a lot, but especially now it's cold, it's really stiff. So it's kind of hard to push stuff through there sometimes, which is a pain. And if something gets stuck, which if you have a bit of wood that's bent, like a thick piece that's a little bit bent, it'll often get stuck down here. And so what you end up having to do is you got to take off this whole plate, take off the rubber, and then turn off, obviously have the machine turned off, and then try to get out that piece of wood that's been wedged in there. And that's a pain. So what I did, like I didn't want to take the whole safety chute off and have the rubber guard out. So I took off 2 of the bolts So the ones on the sides, I left the bolt on the top and the bottom, so that if something gets stuck, I just have to take off 2 bolts instead of 4. And that happens maybe, you know, it's not as rare as I would have wished, for sure. So I try to be careful now. If I start to get some resistance or feel like I'm having to push too hard to get the wood through, I'll just take the last part out and yeah, and just try to avoid that happening, because it is a bit of a pain. Also, one good thing is if you get something stuck down in the flywheel, it's not all that hard to take everything out and retrieve everything. When we were putting this together, I very stupidly put my ratchet set, just laid it on top here. This is where my socket set just fell. So I'm gonna have to get all that out, make sure I got every single piece now before I start it out. Start it up. And of course it folded in and fell, and all the loose sockets went all down through the shredder, so I actually had to take apart the whole back of the rig and fish out every single socket and fill up my set and make sure everything was in there. So, but it wasn't too big of an operation. It was a big pain, I guess. Yeah, we have footage of that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh God. Well, enjoy my embarrassing moment. Yeah, this is the first time I had trouble starting her. Like I said, I haven't started her now since September, October probably. So I'm guessing condensation in the line maybe. But hopefully this time it'll start first pull. I always put on my chainsaw helmet because this thing's pretty loud. And I also put in my headphones as a second layer of protection, because it's like, I would say twice as loud as a Skidoo. So it's pretty loud, like louder than a snowblower. But if you have ear protection on, it's no big deal. Alright, let's get her started.
Let's get started.
Okay, let's put the bag on. And we'll see if the bag actually holds up for me. Oh, another tip is to keep your axe handy. Because I'm knocking these trees down, little ones, and limbing them with the chainsaw, so sometimes I'll leave on a bit of a branch or I miss something. And so it's good to have an axe here just to knock off anything small that wouldn't push through the thing, but it's too big to break off by hand. So if that's a limitation for you, if you think, well, it's your chipper, you shouldn't have to have an axe, this is not the chipper for you. Because you definitely need to have an axe handy. One thing I wish they had to build in better was a better place to hook the bag onto, because as far as I can tell, this is it, like this little depression here. So what I generally do is I make sure the string is down in that hole when I'm tightening it, like so. And then, if you'll remember, I've got to physically put this back out, which is also a pain, which I do not appreciate. Like so. And then just make sure it's on as tight as you can get. And then hopefully it won't blow off on me. And you'll see how fast the bag fills up now. It might be like 7 or 8 of those and the bag is full. So we'll see now in a second. Oh, it's cold. What drives me absolutely nuts. So what am I supposed to do with all this now? The bag stinks, to be honest, and it's just getting clogged up and blowing it everywhere. So am I supposed to take it off that much at a time, that's ridiculous. They really should have done a better job on the bag, or the hooking mechanism, or something better than what they have. So now I got to shovel all this up later. So hopefully the bag starts to work for me. It seems to do this sometimes, and just fill up this sometimes. So it's hard to know when it's going to do which one. But that's such a bummer. So much extra work that I don't want to do. Thanks,
You can see the chips. Smell really nice. They look great, but we don't want them on our driveway. We'd prefer them in the bag so that we can bring them over to the chicken coop.
Well, let's hope this one goes better so you can see. When it works, it's great. You definitely want to do is wear gloves when you're using this. Not only is it hard pushing the wood in, so that'll be hard on your hands, but once you get in far and it's just like maybe this long sticking out and you're holding it, it's really vibrating hard and it can slap you on the hand pretty good. So it kind of, yeah, it's kind of painful to get hit by it for sure, but even just holding on to it is such a rattle that I don't know, maybe everyone else has more tough leathery man hands than I do, but I find it a bit hard to hold on to right at the end. Alright, so the bag actually seems like it held up pretty good that time. Holy cow.
What are you talking about? Look at all the chips.
That's from before, I think.
Is it?
But I filled it up too much anyway. It's got to come out if it's full.
Oh, wow.
So, filled up a lot better that time.
It filled up really fast.
It's a crapshoot. Well, yeah, it's whole trees, right?
Straight into the coop. Dominic's going to show you now what the shredder does. So he's just cutting off just the tops of the branches, the things that you would put up into the shredder. So like lawn trimmings and clippings and bush clippings. And he's going to toss them into the shredder to show you what it does.
So that's kind of what comes out of the shredder. I'm going to get a handful of chips to compare.
Yeah, sure.
So final thoughts on the chipper are it can make good mulch. It's got lots of power. Starts easy. You know, pretty easy. Just bring it in, take it out, use it, she goes easy. Cons are putting the wood into it is the problem. It's a bit of a pain to get the wood ready. Takes a lot more time. So if you're someone who has a whole pile of brush that you're constantly chipping up like I could be doing, then you might want to go get something bigger. If you're someone who has brush coming after a storm, or you know, you're just doing lawn maintenance, shredding leaves. I haven't actually tried shredding leaves in here. Maybe I should.
Yeah.
But I bet the shredder would be great for the little stuff to make nice mulch for your flower bed or your vegetable garden or whatever. It's been useful for me. I mulch my garden. I put in wood chips for the chickens. It's great for that stuff. I could use something bigger with what we got going on. If you've got a big project or a big thing that you're going to be doing over a number of years and you're going to be chipping a lot, I would say wait and get something bigger. If you've got a small area and you're just chipping and shredding as things come up, then this would be more than enough, I would say. It's lots of power. Like I said though, if you're going to be doing a lot of hardwood, you're going to have to accept the fact that you're going to need to trim it down to get it into the chute there. But it feels like it's well built. Starts on a dime, or whatever that expression is. That's not an expression. It starts generally first, second pull. So mechanically seems great.
It's buried.
Bag doesn't work the best. let's be serious. I'll move it out of the way. About 4 bags worth.
Oh my
of ground.
gosh. Lots of really nice mulch,
Yeah.
but it's not where you want it to be. You don't want it in the middle of our driveway. We prefer it in the bag so you can bring it out. Anyway, that is it, guys. See you next time. Thank you.